There are languages that no algorithm can decipher, only those who have learned to listen to the silence. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from, and subscribe to the channel for exciting stories every day. Shall we begin? From the 47th floor of a mirrored skyscraper right on Fifth Avenue, the world seemed smaller than it really was. There, amidst smoked glass walls and Italian marble floors, Augusto Verani commanded an empire built on words. Not just any words, these were codes, translations, linguistic algorithms capable of transforming languages into data and vice versa. His company, Verbum Tech, dominated contracts with governments, universities, and multinational corporations. Augusto was a tall man in a tailored suit with a deep voice who gestured on the phone in 3 different languages before breakfast. But Augusto's true pride, what kept him up late smiling at his screens, was Project Verbum Deus, a revolutionary artificial intelligence trained to translate any human language, living, dead, or extinct. Vulgar Latin, Aramaic, Egyptian hieroglyphs, indigenous languages erased by colonization. Everything. The system promised to be the universal translator, the ultimate tool for unlocking the secrets held in ancient manuscripts, forgotten codices, and silent ruins. For months, the AI dazzled investors. It deciphered Etruscan texts, interpreted Sumerian chants, reconstructed lost dialects of Mesopotamia. Augusto was celebrated as a visionary. But then, the manuscript arrived. Discovered by a team of archaeologists in ruins in North Africa, the text was composed of symbols that didn't fit into any known linguistic family. It wasn't Arabic, it wasn't Berber, it wasn't Latin or Greek. The letters had their own cadence, almost musical, but they defied any grammatical logic. Augusto invested fortunes. He hired the best linguists from Europe, Asia, the Americas. He fed Verbum Deus billions of additional data points. Nothing. The AI stalled. The experts gave up. And Augusto, for the first time in years, tasted the bitter flavor of defeat. Meanwhile, in the same halls where theories and million-dollar investments were discussed, Donna Salete pushed a cleaning cart. She was a middle-aged black woman, slender, with calloused hands and a quiet voice. She arrived at 10 at night, when the executives had already left, and cleaned each room as if performing a ritual, sweeping, mopping, emptying trash cans, rearranging chairs. Invisible. And beside her, leaning against an old aluminum bucket, was Miriam, her 17-year-old daughter. Miriam accompanied her mother a few nights a week, as they were alone after her father's death. While Donna Salete worked, Miriam did her homework under the cool light of the LED fixtures. But her real pastime was something else, collecting words. Since she was little, Miriam had scoured the elite's intellectual waste, crumpled papers, translation drafts, discarded technical manuals. She once found a torn book of vulgar Latin. Another time, notes in Koine Greek. She kept everything. She created her own codes. She played at deciphering dead languages like someone assembling puzzles. That night, as Donna Salete cleaned the conference room on the 47th floor, Miriam peeked through the half-open door and saw, on the mahogany table, an aged document protected by anti-glare glass. Beside it, a screen displayed the message, "Translation impossible, error 404, pattern not recognized." She didn't touch anything. She just observed, and something inside her whispered, "I've seen this before." The next morning, Augusto Verani called an emergency meeting. The room was packed. Linguists from Oxford, data engineers from Bangalore, translators specializing in Semitic languages, internationally renowned academics, all impeccably dressed, all with serious expressions. The manuscript was projected on the screen, enlarged, analyzed, dissected. "Ladies and gentlemen," Augusto began, his voice controlled but tense, "we have invested $8 million in this project. Our system has deciphered languages that haven't been spoken for 3,000 years. And now you're telling me this?" He pointed to the manuscript. is untranslatable." A German linguist adjusted his glasses and replied cautiously, "Mr. Varani, this isn't a matter of technical incapacity. The text doesn't follow any known structure. There are no cognates, no Indo-European or Afro-Asiatic roots. It's as if it were invented." "Invented?" Augusto raised an eyebrow. "You mean someone created a fake language just to trick us?" "Not necessarily fake," interjected a semiotics professor from USP. "Perhaps it's a ritual language, something created for a specific purpose. Religions, cults, secret societies. There are historical precedents." Augusto clenched his fists. "I don't pay you for theories, I want results." The ensuing silence was heavy. No one had answers. That same night, when Donna Salete returned to the building, Miriam accompanied her again. But this time she was restless. She couldn't stop thinking about the manuscript. The letters had something familiar, not in form, but in rhythm. It was like hearing an ancient melody disguised as text. When her mother went into the bathroom to change the trash bags, Miriam took advantage. She entered the conference room. The manuscript was still there, forgotten on the table. She took out her phone, snapped a quick photo, and left before anyone noticed. Back home on the crowded bus cutting through the city in the early morning, Miriam zoomed in on the image. She studied each symbol, each stroke. And then something clicked. Those letters, they were a fusion. They weren't pure. They were hybrid, part Latin, part Arabic, part something else. As if someone had created a language to hide a truth. She grabbed an old notebook and started writing. For the next 5 days, Miriam barely slept. She woke before dawn, went to school, ran back home, helped her mother with dinner, and then plunged into the manuscript. She used old dictionaries she found in second-hand bookstores, consulted online linguistics forums, compared sound patterns, and slowly she began to decipher. The language wasn't random, it was coded. Each word carried a double meaning, a superficial, religious, solemn layer, and a hidden, political, violent layer. Miriam trembled as she realized this wasn't a sacred text. It was an oath of obedience, a colonial pact, written by European monks in the 16th century, intended for newly converted African populations. The goal: to make them believe they were praying to God, when in reality they were swearing eternal submission to the colonizers. It was a language made to silence, and Augusto Varani, unknowingly, had invested millions to resurrect it. Miriam wrote everything down. She made tables. She transcribed. She translated. When she finished, she held in her hands something no algorithm would ever find: human context, history, emotion. But now she faced a terrifying question. What to do with it? If she told anyone, who would believe her? She was the cleaner's daughter. She hadn't even finished high school. Who would listen to a poor, invisible black girl? It was Mrs. Salette who noticed her daughter's distress. "Miriam, what's bothering you?" The girl hesitated. Then she told her everything. Mrs. Salete listened in silence. When Miriam finished, her mother held her hands firmly. "If you know the truth, daughter, then you have an obligation to speak it. It doesn't matter who will listen. Truth doesn't ask permission to exist." And that's how Miriam decided to act. The official unveiling of Verbum Deus was scheduled for a week later. Augusto Varani had called for a live broadcast with journalists, investors, and government representatives. The plan was to announce a partial solution for the manuscript, even if it was a lie, just to save the company's reputation. Miriam knew this because she'd overheard the executives talking while her mother was cleaning. On the day of the event, the 47th floor auditorium was packed. LED lights, giant screens, live cameras. Augusto strode onto the stage in an impeccable navy blue suit, a confident smile, hands spread wide as if he owned the world. "Ladies and gentlemen, today we present to you the future of linguistic translation." As he spoke, Mrs. Salette and Miriam were in the back of the hall with the cleaning staff. Miriam clutched the notebook to her chest, her heart pounding. Augusto continued, "Unfortunately, some texts still challenge even our most advanced technology. But we are close, very close." That's when one of the linguists, visibly uncomfortable, raised his hand. "Mr. Verani, with all due respect, we are not close. The manuscript remains untranslatable." Augusto flushed. He tried to pivot. "This is impossible to translate." And then, from the back of the hall, a young, firm voice cut through the air. "Non est impossible, sed vos non auditis." All heads turned. Miriam stood, thin, wearing a faded sweatshirt, holding an old notebook. Beside her, Mrs. Salete, gaping. Augusto frowned. "Who are you?" "Miriam Santos, daughter of Mrs. Salete, who has been cleaning this floor for 12 years. A murmur swept through the room. "And what did you say?" Miriam took a deep breath. "I said, it's not impossible. You just aren't listening." She walked to the stage. No one stopped her. Everyone was too stunned. She ascended, opened the notebook, and began to read. She didn't just translate the manuscript. She explained its origins, its purpose, its historical cruelty. The room fell into absolute silence. When she finished, one of the Oxford linguists asked to see the notes. He checked, he compared, and then, slowly, he began to clap. Others followed. Augusto Verani stood frozen, pale, before an inescapable truth. His fortune had been built on the inability to listen. In the following days, Miriam's story spread. Newspapers, news portals, social media. Cleaner's daughter deciphers manuscript that artificial intelligence couldn't translate. The video of the presentation went viral. Universities reached out. Academics requested to study her notes. Augusto Verani, initially humiliated, had two options: deny Miriam's contribution or acknowledge it publicly. His advisors suggested the former, but something within him, perhaps a sliver of dignity, chose the latter. At a press conference, he said, "I built an empire based on technology, but I learned that no machine can replace human listening. Miriam Santos showed us that. And because of that, we are offering her a full scholarship, as well as a position as a linguistic consultant at Verbum Tech." Miriam accepted, but she imposed one condition: that her mother be hired with a formal contract, a decent salary, and full labor rights, no longer as a contractor, but as an official employee of the company. Augusto agreed. Mrs. Salette continued to clean the same building, but now, when she walked through the halls, executives greeted her. They called her Mrs. Salete with genuine respect, and she, with the same humility as always, would smile and carry on. Miriam, meanwhile, began working in the company's linguistics lab. She studied, translated, taught. And whenever someone said, "This is impossible," she would reply with the same phrase, "Sed vos non auditis," you just aren't listening. 6 months later, the manuscript was donated to an African history museum. Before it was sent, Miriam asked permission to make one last annotation. With a permanent marker, she wrote on the bottom margin of the document, "Vox humilis, verbum aeternum." The humble voice is the eternal word. Augusto, who now respected her deeply, asked, "Why that phrase?" Miriam smiled. "Because truth never comes from the top. It comes from those who are at the bottom, who listen to the silence, who know the weight of unspoken words. My mother taught me that." Mrs. Salette, hearing this, embraced her daughter. And in that embrace was everything that no language, living or dead, could translate: love, pride, resilience. Verbum Deus continued to operate, but now it carried a warning on its initial interface. This tool is powerful, but remember, no technology replaces human listening. And so, the cleaner's daughter who swept the halls of power became the voice that taught the powerful a forgotten lesson, that there is wisdom in those whom the world has chosen not to see. And that true translation is not in the code. It is in the heart of the one who dares to listen. And you, what did you think of this story? Did it make you reflect on something? Tell us in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe now to receive inspiring stories every day. Until next time.